The first conversation I always have is the what do you want to be when you grow up conversation. I've made every mistake under the sun. I've made millions of dollars of mistakes, but every day I try to get a little bit better. I think every one-star review is an opportunity to figure out where you failed and do better. A lot of lawyers think, well, if I just make more money, I'm going to be happier. And the reality is more money isn't going to make you happier if you're not a happy person.
You are listening to Sharp Strategies, Sweet Success.
Hello, everyone, and welcome. You're listening to Sharp Strategies, Sweet Success. I'm your host, Tiffany Swedensky, and today I am here with Jay Ruane. I met Jay, I really don't know how. I think it was through LinkedIn. We crossed paths somehow, and he has a criminal mastermind that he runs, and very recently asked me to come on and talk a little bit about SEO. And had a really good time talking to his group. I'm really curious about the criminal mastermind space because I'm pretty well embedded in the PI one. So I have a ton of questions for him there. But Jay, I'd just love to turn the interview over to you and have you fill in the gaps and let everyone know who you are.
So my name is Jay, and I've been practicing criminal defense law for now 28 years. I was very lucky in that I started my career as a public defender. And one day I got passed over for a permanent job. I was making $100 a day as a public defender. And I kept getting promised that I was going to get a permanent job. And I got passed over. And so I quit on the spot. I marched down to my father's office and said, hey, I just quit my job. And he looked at me, he goes, I don't know what you're going to do. I don't have any clients that you can take. But there's a broken desk at the end of the hallway. It's not in a room, but it's like sort of in an open area. You can use it. I don't think the guys I share space with will mind, and maybe you can hustle and find some work. So that was really my sort of launch into private practice. And I decided that I was going to focus in the area of DUI defense. I started becoming known in that area, started building a business, was lucky that my brother had taken an HTML class his freshman year of college. So he said, hey, I couldn't get into the phone book because it had closed a week before I quit my job. And I didn't know where I was going to get clients from for the year. So I was going to hustle. And he said, let's build you a website and see what happens. And that's been my plan. He's actually still my web developer and have built a practice. Now, my father wound up splitting up with his partner, joining me. And we've invested heavily in scaling and building a good business because we didn't have enough money or clients when I first joined up with my father to support two of us. At that point, he had two kids in college and I was, burdened by student loans. So I just focused on the business side while he focused on the client deliverables side. And that really became my strength because I was never going to match him as a lawyer. And we've been building and building and building. And it's really been an amazing journey. And through that time, I love for the entrepreneurial side, the legal entrepreneurial side has really taken off. And that's really where I spend most of my time now. I just got back from the month of June in Europe with my family, and I got back on Monday and they had one question for me that took 5 minutes to answer. And they both, my leadership team, both turned to me and said, we knew the answer, but we wanted to be 100% sure. So I've worked my way out of the business and now I get to just create and think of crazy ideas and mentor young lawyers. So it's been a really fun journey and I'm where I need to be and where I belong.
And that just honestly sounds so wonderful. And no wonder you weren't answering my emails last month. I'm actually writing an article about what small law firm owners should do as the CMOs of their own practices. Because when you're just starting, you effectively are the CMO. And somebody that's pretty much what you do for your firm is the business and marketing side. What would you say the lawyers just starting out, what are the CMO duties they should be assuming? Like, what should they be doing?
Well, I think the first thing you need to do when you're starting out is really sort of get educated. I mean, when I got into the area of law that became my niche, I went the first 5 or 6 years trying to get as much education as possible. If you're going to be a firm owner, you need to take the time to actually educate yourself. Make sure that you understand what SEO is. It's not funny, but there's a colleague I know who's a criminal defense attorney, and he loves to talk about generic rankings. Now, I know he means organic, right? But he constantly calls them generic rankings. And it just shows that he's trying to talk the game, but it's clear if you talk to him, he has no idea what he's talking about. And I think one of the things that we need to do as educated professionals is educate ourselves. Find the resources that you can trust. And I think that's how we connected, right? I started following you and seeing the things that you were posting, and I was devouring the stuff that you were posting on LinkedIn. I said, this woman knows her stuff. And like, I need to connect with her and interact because I'm learning a lot from just your LinkedIn post, and I knew I could learn a lot more. And there's a lot of people in the space, I think, who thrive on lawyers not being knowledgeable and using fancy words and scare tactics to get lawyers to sign on as clients. But if a lawyer can educate themselves, they will not fall for those things. They will hire the right people and they'll get results. And so, when you're the CEO of a law firm, that means you're chief everything officer. And so you need to educate yourself. And yeah, I tell the people in my mastermind, you have a 40-hour-a-week job as a criminal defense lawyer, but you have a side hustle as a law firm owner, and that's another 20 hours a week. And so Friday nights, Sunday nights, when you can, find the time to actually educate yourself and make sure that you are aware of what's going on in the industry, follow the thought leaders like yourself, and really make sure that you are not making massive mistakes. Because I've made some massive mistakes. Massive. I bought a $40,000 copy machine once. I still see it comes up in my Facebook feed as a memory. And I rue the day that I bought that. I should have just gone with, like we do now, scanners and desktop printers. But I've made every mistake under the sun. I've made millions of dollars of mistakes. But every day I try to get a little bit better.
The social media memories can be pretty brutal. I've had my old TikTok videos come up and I'm like, no, I'm not resharing that.
Yeah, you're definitely cringeworthy in some of the old stuff.
As criminal defense attorneys, where are you guys getting most of your leads from? I'm curious how that lines up with personal injury attorneys and where we're seeing most of our leads come from.
The interesting thing about my niche is DUI defense within general criminal defense is somewhat unique in that DUI defense lawyers over the last 20 years have really been the first to take to the web because people don't really like to talk about the fact that they got a DUI. And so putting out information back, in the early 2000s was a great way to find our clientele. We get about 50% of our business digitally, either through paid resources like Google LSA or pay-per-click not so much anymore. And then another 50% comes organically. I'd say for most criminal defense lawyers, I'd say they're probably more like 75% referral marketing, 25% digital marketing. There is a large percentage of criminal defense lawyers who really put no effort into marketing themselves because they don't want to be a business person. They want to fight in the courtroom. And so they live off of those referrals, and some of them do a great job, a phenomenal job of developing a referral network and tapping into it. Others sort of whatever shows up, and they hope enough comes in each week to do it. I had a friend years ago who says, if I can open one file every week and close one file every week, he's like, I can make $300,000 a year. No staff, and that's all I need, and to be happy. And I have a nice life. I'm not killing myself, and that's what I want. And so, hey, that worked for him, right? I didn't want that. I wanted to build something because I knew that there were going to be ups and downs, and I didn't want to be in a situation where we lost everything if people stopped getting arrested in a particular town, which is what happened with COVID, really. Police officers in my state were told, don't arrest anybody. Don't pull them over. Don't give them tickets. Don't arrest people and bring them in. And so the numbers of arrests dropped, but we were able to survive and actually thrive in that time period because we had built systems to target different cohorts and that type of thing. And so we were able to get through it that other lawyers were not able to do that because we had deep referral networks. We had attention to our marketing, and it worked for us.
When you're coaching attorneys on their marketing, and like you're talking to them about how much this costs, all they have to invest in, the 20 hours a week they're spending extra just doing marketing for the business. How do you talk to them about how to balance it all and how to scale reasonably? What are the conversations you're having there?
Well, the first conversation I always have is the what do you want to be when you grow up conversation. And I think that's really something that a lot of lawyers need to do. Because what I have seen is, especially on LinkedIn and especially in masterminds that I've been in, other than my own, some PI places where I've been to thing is, it's exciting to scale and hire and start to see the fruits of a good digital marketing campaign that's well run. And it gets exciting. And so you get on this treadmill and next thing you know, you're running 100 miles an hour, your profit may not have changed because with all of that, you're getting many more expenses. You could even actually wind up working more. And so the first conversation I have with anybody that joins my mastermind is simply, what are you looking for? What kind of life do you want to live now? And what life do you want to have in 5 years? And interestingly enough, I don't hear a lot of, I want to scale to 100 lawyers. I have had that. I have a couple of colleagues who've been like, yeah, I want to get to 50 lawyers. I want to own Texas. That's my goal. I want to be ubiquitous. Hey, and that's great. What I hear a lot is I want to be able to do quality work, have time with my family, and not stress about where my next dollar is coming from. And once you have established that that's your goal, and it also comes with a little bit of lifetime. I talk to some of my members and they're like, well, I'm starting to have kids. I want to make sure that I'm home for dinner. And then I have other people who are like, my kids have graduated. I got 10 years and I want to really rock and roll this and maximize my profit. And so those types of people, I think they can set a different mission and a different goal for themselves. And so that's what we really want to do. We want to identify what you want to be when you grow up. And that takes self-reflection. It takes time. It's not something that you can just shove off an answer to and then be able to attack it, because you really have to be a part therapist and get focusing on what really matters to them.
It's actually not too often I'm hearing coaches say, look, this is going to take some extra time. You're going to be working on this an extra 20 hours a week. And I can just tell with some people, when you give that advice, it is absolutely true. Like, I do it all the time. I work nights and weekends just for the stuff that I want to do. It's such a hard message. How do you, I guess, like, how do you soften the blow? Like, how do you pull them along? Or do you just say, like, look, maybe you're not cut out for this kind of marketing? How do you approach that?
Yeah, that's the hard part. I mean, I've had people who I've said, in fact, I had somebody earlier this year that was in my mastermind. She'd been in it for about 4 months, and we were following up after our first initial conversation. And I said, Stacy, I don't think you want to be a lawyer. Like, you've done it and you've moved. Do you really want to be doing this? Let's talk this through. And at the end of it, she's like, you know what? I've got my pension. I really don't want to start a new firm. I really don't want to do this. I'm happy doing the stuff that I'm doing that's not law related. Maybe I should just quit law. And I was like, you don't have to give up your law license, but maybe you don't want to scale a law practice. And my firm, she actually happened to be in the same state we were in. My firm refers her one-off cases every now and then. She actually decided after a deep conversation, yes, scaling isn't for me. And spending money on a coach to scale would be foolish. So I said, get out of here. This is not what you want. And I think that's the thing is you need to be true to yourself. A lot of lawyers think, well, if I just make more money, I'm going to be happier. And the reality is that more money isn't going to make you happier if you're not a happy person. And so you need to find what makes you happy and run straight for that, whatever that may be. And I know we're getting like deep here and stuff, but that's the kind of thing that I think isn't really said in a lot of masterminds. It's all rush, rush, rush. What's the next person doing? You should be doing it too. Hey, do I have pay-per-click? Oh, I got to start a TikTok campaign. I got to go really hard at TikTok. Well, what if you hate doing video? You don't have to do it. My big thing is I say, look, if you look back on some successes of major corporations, AOL got its start and really got pushed through direct mail. They had people in their business who loved direct mail and went all in on that. Groupon was a bunch of email marketers who loved email marketing, and it was an email list, and they succeeded. You don't have to do everything. You can do what matters to you. And I have people who love being in their community, who are extroverts, who want to get out, shake hands, meet people, have lunches, speak at bar association events, speak at other club and association events. I'm like, then go for that. Don't try to figure out how you're going to become the next TikTok superstar, because that may not be who you are. So it's a lot of self-reflection, and it takes time. It's not something that you can just turn a switch on, because next thing you turn that switch and you're 18 months in and you're miserable and you've spent a ton of money and you're not where you want to be anyway.
I'll tell people that often when it comes to SEO, when they see the cost and what it takes, it's like, hey, you don't have to do SEO. You know, there are many options for growing a firm and getting cases. And then take something, you don't have to be a TikTok star, but video is still popular on Facebook and Instagram and YouTube, where maybe you don't resonate on TikTok, but that exact same content will resonate on a different platform. And so you can pick and choose and ultimately figure out what works for you, drill down into that, and then expand from there. So many firms I talk to, they're so eager to get started with marketing, they just immediately spread themselves very thin
Way
over.
too thin.
This is kind of a related question, and also it's just me trying to get content ideas. But what are the attorneys coming to you like curious about? What are they asking about? What are their FAQs, I guess?
So a lot of them come to me and they're like, I really know I should be using AI, but I don't know where to start. They're worried about the ethical implications of uploading something with their client's name on it. There's not a lot of good bar association direction that's out there, and they see people using it, but they're not sure how to get started themselves. So that's one of the big things. I think we have a good framework for how to use AI in your firm as a criminal defense lawyer that we go over. We have a whole channel about it. We have quarterly meetings about that type of thing. But really, the thing that happens the most is a lot of people start with, hey, I have this CRM. It does X, Y, and Z, but I also need something that does ABC. What do I use? And don't switch just because you want XYZA, because I actually met somebody, they had gone through 7 CRMs in 23 months because they were just chasing. I was like, nothing's going to do everything unless you build it yourself. I built mine myself. I have over $1 million, but I built mine myself because I started before Clio existed. The only thing that was out there when I started was Time Matters, and it was server based, and it was based for hourly billing, general practice firms, and it didn't work for what I needed. And one of my interns knew somebody who was a database college grad in 2001. And so that's how we got into building our own. Would I do it again? Absolutely not, if I knew all the stuff was out there. But I also have the same thing. I had somebody say, well, should I build my own CRM in Airtable? I love Airtable. I use it for a number of different things, but I said, is this really the best use of your time? Clio can get you 90% of the way there. Lawmatics is any of those CRMs would be good. Identify what's the best use of your time. And that's something else that I think a lot of people do is they go for the next shiny thing and it eats up 90 days of their time. You needed 180 days for it to be effective, but at 90 days you got bored and you pivoted to the next thing. So you're never giving that solution, whether it's marketing or administrative or whatever, the opportunity to really become what you need it to be. And that's the other thing. I keep telling people, we're in this business for 30, 40, 50 years. You don't need something to pay dividends next week. You're not selling a widget that's going to turn around and be commoditized by people in China. I guess theoretically it could be commoditized by AI at some point. But at least for me in the criminal space, I don't think someone's going to have AI standing next to them when they're staring down the barrel of 30 years in jail. They want a person they can call and talk to. So I think my job is relatively more safe than maybe contracts attorney or a real estate closings attorney or a trust and estates attorney who people turn to those things. So I think the other thing is just getting to know yourself. I push back on should I do this and this because I want people to actually make cognitive impact on their decision making rather than just reactionary decision making.
I mean, amen to a lot of that. And I'm working with firms that are debating a lot of CRMs. And as somebody who's worked in just a ton, I'm of the standpoint, it's like, hey, they're all the same. But what I know is that many of you firms aren't utilizing these tools to their full capacity.
Like 10%, they're barely scratching the surface.
Yeah. A lot of what I do is come in and make sure they're utilizing that other 90 or 50%.
I had somebody approach me and they were like, I need to figure out a way where I can send text messages to people. What service should I use? I was like, well, what CRM do you have? And guess what? Their CRM could have done it. They were about to buy a standalone solving that problem when they just didn't realize that if they just scrolled down, the option was there. I mean, that's the kind of thing where people need to take a moment, take a breath, pause, think about your client journey, think about all these things and see how you're going to solve them.
And you really do have to stop and think with the AI implementation, not because it's dangerous, but because like in my personal use cases, I'm not a fan of like some AI content. There's some parts of it I'm not a fan of, but when you're using AI and making it a part of your processes, it is so custom and it is so dependent on how you use it. And I go back to a concept of think of AI as not necessarily like a single tool, but something you could use as a personal operating system. Do this, this, do this. That is where you do have to get really, not personal, but I guess really introspective. Introspective is the word
Yes.
I'm looking for. You have to look into yourself and think like, what do I need? How do I want it to work? What do I want my life to look like? And like really answer those questions. And I'm not an attorney, so I can only speak to what other attorneys have said. There are some instances where you can more or less coast and be totally comfortable. And if that's where you are, that's where you are. But you're not going to go anywhere without that like end point and that final destination in mind. And that's just must be the theme of our podcast today because it's just so important.
It is. And I think a lot of people, they come out of law school, they get a job, then they decide to hang a shingle. They go out and then they're saying, I want it all. You didn't start off as a lawyer. You went through college and then through law school, and then you studied the bar, and then you started learning how to do a particular area of law, and you got well enough to be able to. You don't start climbing Mount Everest at the top. It's a long slog at the bottom and in the middle part that's not glorious and not glamorous. You got to do that work. And so many people want to just stop at the top. I don't know about you, but I've run into a lot of lawyers over a lot of years, and they all say at these masterminds, well, I just want to run the marketing because the marketing is going out to lunches, meeting people. They don't know a landing page from a contact page. They don't know HTML. They want to do the marketing because they think it's sexy and it's fun, but they don't really know marketing. They just don't want to be doing what they're doing. And marketing sounds like, well, I can contribute to that, but they could actually hurt their practices more than they can help it by saying, I'm now in charge of marketing. My marketing director, who's been with me now for 11 years, she started out of college as just a copywriter, went to get her grad degree at DePaul in professional writing. So she's got a master's. And then all along that journey, she took Bruce Clay's class. We've invested a lot of time and attention to that. And she pregnant with her second child. And we had a conversation earlier this week. And she's like, I don't know when I'm coming back. And one of the things that's important to my law firm is that we really want to support families. I have 4 kids in my firm. We have like 23 kids under 10 among all the parents. A number of us have multiples, and we have made a conscious decision in my firm to be very supportive of families. So I said to her, look, if you want to come back at 6 months, that's cool. If you want to come back at a year, that's cool. Just keep me informed and I'll slide into that role as much as I can. And we'll outsource some things. I've got some other people that I could tap to do some of the work that we need done in the interim. But it's one of these things where we just need to have this conversation. I'm not going to be the one who's going to be taking the lead on marketing for the next decade in my firm. I need somebody who's got a little bit more an objective viewpoint of it, who can look at the numbers on a regular basis and see where we're winning, where we're losing, where we can make ground up. And I'm not the person who belongs in those numbers. It's not my skill set, my ADHD. I will not do a good job for my own law firm. Sure, do I want to say I run the marketing? Yeah, I could do that, but I could say I run the janitorial services at my firm. It doesn't matter. I'm the boss at the end of the day. So too many lawyers, I think, want to say they're in charge of marketing because they think it's the fun thing to say.
I don't think it's any coincidence that the good marketers, the ones who stick around and make this huge impact, also happen to be good writers and have training in writing and copywriting.
Sure.
Every time I'm looking for a new marketer, that's writing skills and reading comprehension, that's like number 1 on the list. It's so important.
And I mean, when we've tried to train AI to write the way Jen writes, we fed it 1 million of her examples, and it does a pretty good job, but it's not her. And she has been able to interview clients over the years, get to know the lawyers, and she has relationships with the clients, the lawyers, the staff, and the intake team. She can say, hey, what are people asking about today? I mean, we could just say, upload a spreadsheet and say, give me content on this stuff, but that's not going to necessarily resonate with the type of people that we have coming in. And we want to resonate with our type of client that we're searching for. And so maybe one day it will get there. I don't think we're there yet, but hey, who knows? But in the meantime, I think people connect with people. I love having humans in charge of writing my content, just like I like humans answering my phones. And I think that's something that really makes you stand out in this day of technology, is that, especially in criminal defense, people want to know that they're talking to somebody who can help them.
And speaking of that, because I did have some criminal defense thing, I often use criminal defense as an example for personal injury attorneys for a couple things. I want to ask your take on this,
Sure.
But the reviews is way up on the list. I'm often talking to personal injury attorneys who say, well, our clients may not want to review, they may not want to air their dirty laundry. And then I immediately say, look at family law attorneys, look at criminal defense attorneys. What do you think they're dealing with? How are they getting as many reviews as they are? Could you help me explain that? How are you guys getting reviews so well?
So we make getting reviews an important part of our entire client experience. So when our intake team is talking to people who are leads, qualified leads that we want to sign, they'll work into the conversation. After you get done with us, you're going to want to leave us that 5-star review. Then when they hire us, they talk to their client service coordinator who's going to say, hey, I'm going to march you through this. I'm going to make sure that you're taken care of. At the end of this process, you're going to be sure you're going to want to leave us a 5-star review. Then they're talking to their paralegal who's going to bring up, I can't wait to see the review that you give me. I hope you mention me in the review. So we're mentioning it. We're seeding that throughout the entire process so that when the ask does come at the very end, it's sort of like, well, we've been talking about this whole time. Of course, I'm going to do that. It's not just the whole, hey, the case is over. Can you give me a review? Like, we've been talking about getting a review since before you were even a client. And that has helped us. And then we actually have a remote worker that's their job. Like, their job is to follow the client through the entire process, do end runs, make sure that there are no problems, address them before they even happen. And then afterwards, because they have that relationship, to be able to do that ask for the review. And that has taken us from 170 to over 1,000 across all of our GVP locations. If I say, hey, I need 40 reviews in a new location, how quickly can you get them? We can get 40 reviews in 4 to 5 weeks because my person has relationships with people and can say, hey, we just opened up a new location. You happen to live in that town. Would you mind giving us a review at that location? And so we track where our clients live. Just because they live in a town doesn't mean that that's where they got arrested. So if I say, hey, we're opening up an office in Westport, we can identify 200 clients that we've had who live in Westport over the last 15 years and reach out to them directly and say, hey, you live in Westport, would you give us a review? And that has proven phenomenal in being able to address people. And then they're more likely to stick, I think. At least they have for us, because Google is saying, well, they live in Westport. The new office is in Westport. Of course they would review it. If I had them do something 3 hours away and past 4 other counties, it's less likely to stick, in my opinion and in my experience.
Well, and it makes sense because when you think about Google reviews from like the user's perspective, like if you looked at all the businesses you've reviewed, if you pull out the map a little bit, you'll probably notice cluster. It's going to be a bunch of reviews where you've lived and a handful in, locations you've traveled. And if you're carrying your phone with you, Google Maps is with you everywhere you go. Google knows where you're going. If you leave a review in a location you've never visited, it's pretty obvious to me how the algorithms can flag something like that.
Yeah,
which
absolutely.
is why a lot of those strategies don't work. Yeah, sorry.
Yeah. And the other thing about getting reviews is a lot of people don't want to say that they were arrested and what they were arrested for. They don't want their business out there. But we don't want our reviews talking about what the client hired us for. We want our reviews focusing on what their relationship with us was like. And so it was, I always felt safe. I felt respected. There was great communication. And people give reviews. I mean, it's wild to see somebody charged with a murder give you a review, right? But they didn't write, I was charged with murder, and they helped me. It was just like, I was facing serious charges and I always felt like I had somebody in my corner. And that's the kind of review that, like, it makes a difference to somebody else who's like, I'm scared. I don't want to be alone. Who am I going to hire? They see that and they say, well, it sounds like these are the right lawyers for me.
I mean, that's so smart because you sprinkle it into the whole process. One of the common one of the common objections I get is, hey, we want only the people who are happy with us to see these reviews. It doesn't sound like you guys are gatekeeping in that way because it's like baked into the client experience.
No, and I love getting 5-star reviews. I'll take a 4-star. I mean, I've had people who write glowing reviews and give us 4 stars. And quite frankly, we've had people who, yeah, the case didn't work out the way we wanted, and they gave us a 2-star review or a 1-star review. I'll respond to that. We have some people who've got some challenges who will just blast us for no reason. My go-to response is, I'm sorry that you feel this way. I hope you get the help that you deserve. And leave it at that. And so at least they're getting a response from me. But you got to stay on top of these things. I think there's something to be said for responding to even the 1 stars so that people know that you take people's complaints seriously. I had somebody who complained about a lawyer who didn't respond to multiple emails and multiple calls. And I checked with their staff member, their paralegal, and they said, yeah, this is an issue for this lawyer. And so the lawyer went on a PIP, and 45 days later, the lawyer was no longer with us. And so I went in and said, you know what? You flagged something that was important to us. We don't want to be seen as non-communicative. You should know that this attorney's no longer with our firm. They didn't hold themselves to our communication standards. Thank you for highlighting it to me. I wish you the best, and I'm sorry that you got such a negative experience from us. How many times that's been brought up to me by my intake team when they say, hey, somebody said that they read this. And this is a 4-year-old review now. And people say, somebody read that review and they said they really liked how you responded. So I try to be as honest with the whole world as possible when it comes to those reviews.
If you have a law firm come to you and say, I got a 1-star review, should I pay for a service to have it removed or should I report it? What advice do you give them?
I know they're out there. I think every 1-star review is an opportunity to figure out where you failed and do better. I mean, look, and I hate to use the word, but sometimes they're just crazy faces out there who will never be happy with anything. And so you be a little understanding of that. You leave a little response, but then you can go to your people and say, hey, we got a bunch of negative reviews. Who can get me? We got a negative 1-star. I need to get 10 5-star reviews in the next 10 days. Can you tap your people who are primed and say, hey, we got a 1-star review from somebody, and this is what they said. Did you get that same feeling from us? Would you mind defending us in a review? And we'll get people who will post a review. I don't know what that person's saying, because when I called, they always picked up the phone, that type of thing. So we'll use our clients as our advocates in reviews by just asking them to address the issue that other people have negged us for. You need somebody paying attention. Honestly, if I was going to scale, I think, obviously, besides hiring my marketing team, one of the first things I would do is hire a well-qualified remote worker, because you can get them less expensively, and make reviews their job. Because if you have somebody who you're paying $30,000 a year to, or $40,000 a year to, and they're remote and they're able to spend every day on the phone, calling clients, getting reviews, teeing that up, that's going to translate into business. Because when was the last time you did anything without checking at least a review?
And they're sticky. You already mentioned they live for years and years and years unless they eventually get taken down. Do you coach on this? Is this or did you receive this kind of review coaching, or is this something you just
This is all just stuff that I've learned myself over time by trial and error and deep thought, and how do we make this a better operation? One of the benefits of the role that I am is I have a fantastic leadership team that have been with me now for over 20 years. My COO started off, she was my sister's best friend in college, thought she was going to be a tax lawyer, didn't have a job. I hired her and she started hustling for me, and she runs all the lawyers in my firm. And Emily, who is my firm administrator, she came to me when she was first in college and actually left college to work for me full time, and was decided to go drop out of full-time day college and take her classes at night. She left after a couple of years because her husband was a Green Beret, and then they moved back to Connecticut. And she says, hey, I'm back. Is there a role you could use me for? And so we sort of brought her up to be that firm administrator. So they work well with me because we have such a long-standing relationship, and they work well with each other. And so that's why I was able to get away for the month of June and not have to worry that the firm was going to implode, because I had people who we've all worked together and they know where we're going. And that's been great.
Just built up a really good team of people around you. And so that's impressive in of itself.
And they give me the freedom to do the crazy ideas that I want to work on, which is, let me go down into review psychology and I'll read white papers and that type of thing. I just brought in a speaker for my lawyers. We're here in Connecticut. I went to Yale. I said, who at Yale Medical School teaches doctors how to break bad news to people? Right? There's got to be a psychology to that. Sure enough, there is. So then I developed a relationship. I read some white papers. So we had an internal CLE on how to deliver bad news to our clients in a respectful way so that they are not taken aback by it. Because it's a criminal case can have a major life change. But I'm only able to devote my time and attention to those things that make us better as a firm, because my operations team can run without me.
So impressive. That is such a good idea too, honestly. I love that. We're coming up on time. So Jay, how do you want people to look you up and learn more about you?
I mean, connect with me on LinkedIn. I post a lot of stuff there. I didn't do much in June and the beginning of July because I was traveling and I didn't even bring a laptop with me overseas. It was wild to just have my phone. I couldn't really do much, but that was intentional and it worked out. So I'm going to get back to posting more regularly on LinkedIn. You can connect with me there. You can go to thecriminalmastermind.com and connect with me there. I'm Jay at the Criminal Mastermind or Jay at Ruane Attorneys. Shoot me an email. Find me on all the social platforms. Just connect with me. I'm happy to make new friends. And if I can do anything to help people, I'm happy to do that. I believe in being like the Johnny Appleseed. The more I can give away, the better I'm going to do. And that's worked for my career. Some people think I'm crazy, but I like to be as generous as possible.
Well, I appreciate you sharing what you knew on the podcast today. Thank you so much for being a guest. Thank you for all the listeners for tuning in, and we'll see everyone next time.